AAAAA. 49 How to solve the lack of motivation in young people. Today many young people suffer problems to feel motivated. This situation prevents them from reaching their full potential, and they prefer to settle for mediocre jobs or unhealthy relationships. This reality obeys many factors, both personal and social, making it necessary to analyze its causes and implications to find a practical and effective solution. In the first place, it is fundamental that parents have ruled out the possibility of psychological disorders that are affecting the emotional stability of their children. Unfortunately, we still live in a society where people often minimize the importance of diseases such as depression, which causes many people to grow up thinking that it is normal to feel sad or downcast for no reason, a situation that becomes more common during adolescence. In this way, they develop a low self-esteem that affects decision-making, showing a lack of motivation in different aspects of their life. In these cases, the only alternative is to follow a treatment based on pills, which is usually complemented by behavioral therapies. On the other hand, family problems are one of the main reasons why young people do not feel motivated. This is because they do not have a healthy environment when they return home, causing the appearance of negative thoughts. However, it should be mentioned that this same situation has different long-term effects. There are young people who seek to get ahead at all costs, just to leave behind a past full of dissatisfaction. This contrast is the result of the intervention of external factors, such as friends, teachers, or even the education system. Apart from family influence and society, young people must act according to their own convictions and desires. Otherwise, there may be pictures of rebellion and intolerance. In this aspect it is necessary to highlight the presence of values, since all people are obliged to respect their peers. To overcome demotivation it is very important that personal goals are established. Likewise, young people must accompany them with prizes or incentives that help create a feeling of hope. One way to facilitate this process is to set objectives according to the capacities and abilities that you have. Finally, it is never advisable to devaluate an achievement that has been achieved. Instead, it is advisable to recognize the effort invested and feel proud. Failures, which are always possible, represent small obstacles that allow us to learn from mistakes and improve as a person. This attitude is part of positive thinking, which has proven to be one of the best resources to overcome apathy. CC 50 International trade and its challenges in the current market. Currently, there are a number of factors that are involved in the economic growth of any nation. However, there is no doubt that international trade is one of the most important in recent decades. Basically, it is about the exchange of different kinds of products that is carried out between two or more countries. This allows a productive specialization to be established, providing multiple benefits for citizens and their quality of life. The improvement in the manufacturing processes of everyday goods is also a consequence of international trade. Likewise, countries must not respond to the demands of their people on their own, being able to resort to alternatives that provide lower production costs. Like other similar activities, the pace of these transactions will increase depending on the political and social stability that exists. On the other hand, it is necessary to mention that it is not possible to separate international trade from certain socio-economic variables. These include the state of financial markets, which must provide the right conditions, but also a correct regulation of laws and regulations that control international relations. This will be reflected in greater legal security during the entire process, allowing to maintain a stable and continuous flow of investments. When the aforementioned factors are not taken into account, it is inevitable that certain imbalances are generated. An example of this can be seen in the economic outlook of some countries in Latin America, where mismanagement by governments leads to widespread uncertainty. Obviously, this causes tensions in commercial exchanges, resulting in a series of negative effects. This type of problem is usually associated to a greater extent with the monetary and financial sphere. However, it is important to be clear that there is a direct impact on other aspects of society. Thus we find ourselves with more credit restrictions, which interfere with the commercial activity of small businesses, while the population has no other option but to adapt to the new consumption patterns. In conclusion, it is essential that each government praises the value of higher education, both in universities and institutes. It is about improving the educational system so that its people are more qualified, so that the graduates have the skills and aptitudes to raise the margins of productivity. In this way, they can lead the development of their country, motivating research and innovation in more traditional processes. All this will be of great help for international trade, since it will make it easier to face the challenges of the complex market that exists today. CCCA 51. The vision of Steve Jobs and its impact on modern society. Today's world is characterized by the daily use of smartphones to communicate, access the internet and many other functions they offer. This is a reality that we often take lightly, without realizing that it is the result of a series of advances and scientific discoveries. However, these variables are at the mercy of man, his vision being necessary to carry out any significant change in society. Although there is no doubt that there are many people who have contributed in this regard, Steve Jobs has become the perfect example of visionary, both in business and technology. His versatility to approach the market is still praised by many people, because he was able to create a cult brand that brought with it a series of innovations. In this way, Apple has become the most important U.S. multinational company in recent times. It was founded by Steve Jobs and Stephen Wozniak, who did not hesitate to break the schemes with their first computer in the mid-70s. Thanks to this device, there is currently a friendly interface for the user, as well as the presence of a mouse to facilitate access to programs and tools. Promoting the advancement of the human being was a goal of Steve Jobs. To achieve it, he was always aware of the social and cultural changes, adapting the business model that Apple had. In this way, he ventured into the music industry through the iPod, a portable digital audio player. But the real success of this decision brought a new way of acquiring music using the internet. This is how the online store called iTunes was introduced. Decades later, the iPhone appeared, which became the first touch-screen smartphone available worldwide. This invention revolutionized the market and reinvented how people interacted with technology. This and the other Apple devices always prioritized minimalism in their designs, a trend that has been adopted by other brands. The decisions and products that were motivated by Steve Jobs show that he had an incomparable vision when changing habits and customs. His untimely death at age 56, caused by cancer, stripped the world of remarkable brilliance and passion. It is not only an entrepreneur who achieved success in all its magnitude, but a man whose desire to innovate and enrich human existence have profoundly impacted modern society. AAAA 52. The importance of honesty in interpersonal relationships. Values represent one of the fundamental pillars of society, since they allow orienting the behavior of people to be able to coexist with others. Although there are several of them that must be inculcated from an early age, so that children learn how to act according to certain types of situations, there is no doubt that honesty is one of the most important, both in interpersonal relationships and at the institutional level. Honesty is deeply related to other positive values. These include transparency, which is essential in different areas of society. An honest attitude allows to develop family, romantic, and student relationships in a healthy way, but it is also essential in more complex processes within the state structure of every country. In this way, we find that it is a value that is linking to justice, generating an atmosphere of trust and harmony. Although depending on social conventions, there are norms and rules that regulate the actions of individuals, values always serve as a reference guide when making a decision. Thinking about this, honesty becomes the best alternative to combat hypocrisy and lack of loyalty. Any interpersonal relationship that lacks it is destined to fail, since it will be inevitable that lies and manipulation interfere with its development. On the other hand, it is important to keep in mind that honesty is not a virtue with which one is born. Although some think it is part of every child from its early years, it should not be confused with innocence and purity, which are based on their lack of ability to understand the nature of their actions. His behavior is not absent from evil or seeks truth as a personal goal, but these concepts are still unknown and only express what they feel. Dishonest people are harmful elements in any type of situation. In interpersonal relationships they are the agents of conflict, and then being discovered will be treated with caution and even distrust. However, it is inevitable that in today's world, where there are high rates of corruption in governments, this attitude is taken as an example. Finally, it only remains to say that it is necessary to uphold values such as honesty so that it is possible to establish a transparent communication. This should become a priority for schools, families, and the media, teaching children how to behave, and how important it is to be honest throughout their lives. CAAA 53 Eating disorders and their consequences in young people. The eating disorders that young people usually experience are the result of emotional problems and poor nutrition habits. This is caused by the lack of resources to maintain a balanced diet or the pressure of certain social groups, but it is also related to the pre-established models imposed by the media. In this way, we are faced with an alarming reality where children and adolescents act in an inappropriate manner and put their health at risk. Among the most affected are the people who are going through adolescence, because in this stage there is usually a higher index of insecurity, motivating the appearance of negative thoughts. Young people feel pressured to comply with beauty standards that are far from reality, and that do not take into consideration the corporal characteristics that are specific to each one. To understand how eating disorders appear, it is necessary to take into account several psychological, genetic, and social factors. The family also plays an essential role, reinforcing the perception that the affected person has, or helping her to find a solution through the intervention of specialists in the field of health. Anorexia is one of the most common disorders today. Most cases belong to women between 14 and 18, but recent studies have revealed that the minimum age is falling. Basically, it is a mental illness where the person develops a nervous obsession to gain weight, distorting the reality observed in the mirror and always feeling obese. The consequences of this are serious alterations in the organism, being able to cause the death when the adequate treatment is not received. On the other hand is bulimia, which consists of a psychological disorder that causes the person to eat large amounts of food, then purged by using laxatives or vomiting. This behavior brings with it dramatic weight fluctuations, which are accompanied by a hormonal imbalance and irremediable damage to the internal organs. Eating disorders and their consequences are a problem that mostly affects the most developed countries, where young people are more concerned about their image. It is important that parents inform themselves about the subject and talk with them, while schools and other educational institutions are obliged to carry out prevention campaigns. Likewise, the mass media must abandon the use of models that only create a false expectation of reality.